Meanwhile, I'll get everyone started. So we're going to start by heading to the platform that we're going to be using for this week's session, which will be Replit. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Anyway, so it says REPL.it. Replit is a website, an online IDE where you can code in various languages like Python, Java, HTML, CSS, etc. So if you don't already have an account in Replit, create one right now, and you can just create that by going to the sign up page, which should be there if you don't already have an account. So while everyone does that, you can also, once you've created your account, you can just go to create under my REPLs, template, search up Java. And then you can name your REPL right here. I'll name it Java. Okay. Something like that. The same way you guys use Onshape for CAD, just using Replit for Java. Tanisha is joining. Okay, everyone, get your sunglasses on like right away. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get mine on too. He's gonna be so surprised. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna accept him. Hi Tanish, what's up?
Hey Ria, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you great. Nice haircut.
Put on the sunglasses, Tanish.
Yeah, or else you're not allowed here.
How exactly do you put on the sunglasses?
You go to video,
Video
you go to
filters.
video filters. Yeah.
Isn't he supposed to be the most tech smart out of all of us?
I don't.
Yeah, what happened?
Oh, okay, we do have an issue. Avyang, you don't know how to create an account. So let me help you. Okay, so you're gonna go to Replit. I'm gonna log out of my account. And then you see in your top right of your screen over here, it says sign up. Do you see that? So click on sign up. And you can continue with Google. That's a really quick way if you have a Google account, which I think a lot of people do. Then you can continue with Google and you can create your account. Does that make sense? Perfect.
Right, Ria, I still don't know how to put on the sunglasses.
Okay, so you see where it says stop video?
Yeah?
There should be an arrow to the right of that. To the top, you see the
Oh,
small arrow?
there.
You got it?
Yeah.
Video filters. There you go.
All right.
So I was just having everyone create Replit accounts and then create a new REPL.
Okay. So was everybody able to create a REPL account and just like react with a thumbs up in the chat or like in person, just to make sure that we know? All right. Yeah, so just type in Java for the language.
And just before I go, Tanish, I wanted to let you know that there's some people here who already know how to code in Java, like Alicia and Kedar. So maybe if you have some free time today, you can just get them started in our project. Just
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think Alicia and Kedar, if you want to stay during the break, I can give like a little rundown of the project that we would probably be doing, and then you can get started on that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Okay, I think so. Everybody has a REPL account, right? Okay.
Bye everyone, have fun.
Hi Ria, thanks for covering for me. Yep, Avina, yeah, we click Java. So let me share my screen. once my REPL loads, and then you can get started. Okay, everybody can see my screen with the loading REPL, right? Okay. So let's see. So I think today mostly will just be an introduction to Java, like basic variables, printing to the console, different types of data you can store in a variable, loops, operations, strings, and then we'll have some like critical thinking problems that will help us apply these skills into writing actual Java code that we can use to solve some problems. So don't know why it's taking so long to load, but we should probably be getting started shortly. Yeah, let me stop sharing and share again. Maybe it's just like lagging. Yeah, Arvin, there are things like comments in Java. So basically every single language has comments so that programmers who are using that language can keep their code documented and more readable for other users who might potentially read their code or use it in their projects as well. So comments, while they might seem like a pretty important thing or pretty insignificant thing at surface level, are pretty important for making your code accessible and more easy to use, read, contribute to the open source community. Yeah, create a REPL in the Java language.
I think it's not just your REPL. My REPL is also crashing in a weird way.
Is it? Okay, yeah, I really am pretty confused. I don't know how.
I'm not having this problem right now, but it's happened to me before.
Yeah, all right, I'm just gonna try to create another one and see if I get this issue. Is anybody else having this issue besides just Alicia and I? Okay, nobody else is? Okay, that's a little weird. We'll see, hopefully it works this time. Yeah. Sometimes initially, yeah, REPL can be a little slow sometimes. That's why some people prefer, a lot of people prefer the environments where you like download a program and then just write the code in a local program on your computer instead of writing it in the browser. But it's more accessible this way, so I think for beginners it's fine. Okay, so got it to work now in a different browser though, which is weird, but I think we should be good to get started. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, so let's get started with just the most basic element of any programming language, which is variables. So variables are basically like different points in memory where you can store certain values. So you can store all sorts of things in variables like numbers, strings. Those are basically numbers and strings are basically the main things. And there's also another variable type called a Boolean, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But basically, so the most basic type of number you can hold in a variable is an integer. And in Java, you have to declare which type of variable you want to create when you're actually declaring the variable. Like in some languages, you could just write like var x equals 5. So this is an integer. But in Java, you have to write int x equals 5. So you have to be specific about, is it an integer, is it a decimal, etc. So you have to be specific about what type of variable you want to create when you're initializing it. So this kind of line here where you write the variable type and some name for it, I don't know why I'm saying that, and then its value. So this is called initializing a variable, this statement. And usually you want to give variables like pretty descriptive names. So like if this variable is holding the input for somebody's age, you probably want to write like age instead of some random thing like H. Like you don't know what, nobody who's reading your code knows what H means. But if they see like H, then they're like, okay, so this is storing the value of an age. So some other variable types are doubles. So doubles are basically just the same thing as decimals for the most part. So I will just call it Y because these variables don't really have specific purpose. Just call it like 1.0 or 1.1, 1.2. Just basically any decimal value you can think of. You can put in a double. And so what do you think will happen if I try to give a variable called Z the value of a double? What do you think will happen?
Error.
Error. Anybody else have any ideas what will happen? You can just unmute yourself. You don't have to raise your hand or like type in the chat.
I guess the error is going to be that 5.1 is not an integer.
Yeah, that should be what it is. Yeah, so basically, because you can't give an integer the value of a double. So let's see what exactly it says. Yeah, so incompatible types, you can't convert from double to integer. So good. And let's see. So I did mention strings. So for strings, you declare it with a capital S. So use capital S and then M, so whatever equals string. Call it like teenage or something like that. And you always end these variable initializations with semicolons. And most of your lines in Java will also end with semicolons. So this might be a little different from other programming languages like Python, but Java uses semicolons. So string M, and then let's see, anything else? There's also characters, which are basically just, so Arvind, you don't have to type what we're typing, but if you want to run some code and like have any other things, like if I write one line and you're curious about something else, you can probably write it in your console and type it out and then actually execute it. So you don't have to write this stuff exactly. I'm just doing it more for explaining perspective. So like character, like N, for example, equals like T or something like that. So, and characters, let's just see here. I'm pretty sure we should get an error. Yeah, so besides this, we also get an error that strings cannot be converted to characters. And that's interesting because you might see we only put, oh yeah, Alicia, that's fine. We only put one character into the string, or into, no, we only put one letter into this when we assign that letter to the character called, which we call it N. But if you see here, the strings use like these double quotes, but for characters, Java has it so they only use single quotes just to be absolutely sure that there's only one letter in there. So when you're using characters or you're declaring a character, you have to initialize it. You have to put the value inside single quotes instead of double quotes. And then now it should be fixed. So it takes a little while to run. Yes, now it's fixed. And then let's see, I think the last type of variable I wanted to talk about is a Boolean. So that's how you spell it. And X, Y, Z, M, N, O. A Boolean is basically just either only holds two possible values, true or false. So you might think, oh, it only holds two values. What's the purpose of that? But there are definitely a lot of purposes for Booleans. Like if you want a loop to run only if a certain condition is true, then you can assign that value of a condition to a Boolean, and then that'll store if it's true or false, and then you can check to see whether the Boolean has a value of true or false. So Booleans do have a lot of purposes, but they only have two values, true or false. So that's basically all the data types that you'll probably have to use for any of our projects or anything like that. So is everybody comfortable with these variables, how to declare them, etc.? Just let me know. Like, you can type in the chat, raise your hand, or it's like unmute if you have any questions about this.
How are we supposed to remember it?
Remember what exactly?
I'm not really good at remembering things, and yeah.
Wait, what, Anushka, what exactly is your question? Like, are you not sure how to remember like which is which data type? So integers are basically just any whole numbers, and doubles are basically just like decimals. So like if you have like 5.1 or like 5.2, then that would be in the value of a double. So do those two make sense? And then strings are basically like if you want to type out any text that is more than one character, you use a string and you put two quotes around like whatever you want to type in the string. So you can see Tanisha is like 6 characters, so that's more than one. So that's a string and you put it in the double quotes. Does that make sense? Okay, and then characters are just basically strings of length 1, and you just initialize them with a single quote. So you can only have one letter that inside a character. And then for Booleans are just variables that either hold true or false values. Those are the only two that they can hold, just true or false. So does that make sense? Okay, so are you good with the variables now, Anishka? All right, that's good. Avinag, what was your question? You can like type it in the chat if you don't want to unmute. I'm confused about what part of the variables. Avinag, what exactly are you confused about? Oh, and the Boolean, yeah. So the Boolean is basically a data type that only holds two values, either true or false. So these are the only two it can have. It can't be like, let's say, potential value for a Boolean. It should, yeah, once it runs, it says cannot find symbol, because this is not a possible value for a Boolean. It can either be just true or false. That's literally it. Only two possible values. So okay. Avinand, does that make sense? Okay, I'll assume it makes sense. If you have any other questions, just type in the chat. We'd be happy to answer. Okay, good. So let's move on to the next part, which is printing to the console. And if you can see here, so this part where we write the code, this is our editor, and then when we run it is the console. So the console displays all the input output from everything we put inside this editor. So let's say now we want to print something, because we just want to have code that we just write here and it does some stuff. Let's say we want to know if it actually works. So what we can do to figure out if our program actually works is at different points in the program, we can print out the values of certain variables, just some certain text to make sure that, okay, so the code got to this point, and at this point, the code had some values. So we can check to make sure that those values are actually correct. So the way we print in Java is a little bit of a long statement, but you write this. So you basically do like system.out.println. So So it just basically means just you want to print a line out to the console. And inside here, inside these double quotes, you'll put like the value of variable x, colon, and then you can put a comma x. So here, now you can just print the value of variable x with a colon and then a space. And then after the comma, you can just put what variable you actually want to print. And then once we let this run, it should just give us value of variable x colon 5. Wait, did I do something wrong? Wait a second. Oh, wait, it's not a comma. It's a plus. That's my bad. So I think now it should work. Because in Python, you do with a comma. So I guess I've been writing too much Python code lately. So now it'll just give us the value of variable 5. And then value variable x 5. And then you can just print it out. So like you can also print out the value of O. And then we'll just say false for now. What's it run? It takes forever. Yeah, variable x false. So those are basic just prints. And let's say you wanted to have like printing stuff on multiple lines. What you could do is, let's say we just get rid of this now. There's different types of commands, like characters you can put inside this string right here that we want to print out. And that can alter how the string is actually formatted once we print it. So let's say this is the first line. And now if we want to write like another string on the second line that says this is the second line. And the way, so if we run it right now, what will happen is it'll all just print on the same line. But we don't want that. We want the first line, this text to be printed on the first line, and then on another line later, this text should get printed. So what we can do, we can just do /n. And what this will do is it will just insert a new line between this text and this text. So now it should just be on the second line. And this text will now be on the second line. And you'll notice that so basically where did it say that x is not 5? Arvin. No worries, no worries. So if you see here with this line, we can see that there's a space right here. And that's because after this new line, we had a space. So if you delete that, there'll be no space. And then just like this. So now if you print it out, there'll be no space and they'll both be like right in order with each other. So, and then there's also another command where you want to have like a tab. So tab is like, if you just shift over 5 spaces, it's like usually 5. So if you have a tab, you can just do /t. And then it will print this first line, the tab, and then the second line. Yeah, so now you notice there's a little bit of a gap. Okay, is everybody good with the printing? Any questions at all? Wait, where? I don't see grammar.
There's a little Grammarly sign between like the console and the main. Yeah, it's right there, that happy face sign.
I think that's just on my computer, like every single window that I'm on. I don't even know why it's there, to be honest. I think I might have installed Grammarly a while back. It's really annoying though. I just like disable it and all in like Word or something. It is a browser extension too, but I think you can also download an application for it too. I think they expanded to also include an app. Makey, you had an exit error. Do you want to share your screen or like put in the chat the code that got you this error? Oh, it's disabled, my bad. All right, you should be able to share screen now. Okay, yeah, so I think you forgot to put a semicolon after declaring like the double string character in Boolean. Do you see like at the end of the line where it's saying like in the error message it's saying like semicolon expected? Because like you see on your line 3, after you said x was equal to 5, you put a semicolon, but you didn't do that with like the double string, so on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and then I think, and then one quick thing, I think when you do the system.out.println, the system, like the S in system has to be capitalized. Yeah, and then I think that was Alicia who put that arrow. So when you're doing the slash, you have to put like a /n or /t or something like that, because slash is an illegal character in a string. So it means something else in terms of computer science. So like /t, yeah, and then just make the S in system capitalized and add the semicolons and you'll be good. All right.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. And also the S in string should be capitalized as well. Just like pretty small case sensitive things, but yeah, go work. Okay. Do you want me to start sharing again, Mickey?
I don't see where to stop sharing.
All right, I can just start it up again. Okay. Everybody can see my REPL? Okay, so let's get started with the next thing, which is then just some basic like mathematical operations you can do in Java. So these will mostly include the integer and double types. So let's get started. I think also there's also float in Java. Yeah. So there's a float, which is basically a variant of a double, but for the most part they be the same. So we won't get too nitty-gritty into the actual differences between those. So first is like, let's say we have a variable a. So I'll just graph all this. And these like 2 slashes, this is the way you comment in Java. So like, say we have variables. So you can put that in a comment. And then there's also multi-line comments, which are basically like, let's say I wanted to comment multiple lines at a time. Instead of having to do like // every single time, I could just put these 2 lines, which, yeah, some people like to do the multi-line comments as well. So just real quick, some comments. So let's say we have int a is equal to 10. We have an integer b is equal to 20. If you want to add that, you can just say system.out.println a plus b. And you can just say here like a variable and a string. You can just say value of a plus b. I think this should work. Yeah. All right, let's just see what we get. Yeah, so I'll just put up a little space. So there's also like a minus b, which should give us what, -10. So then there's also divide, multiply. So if you want to multiply, you just put the asterisk, which is just shift and then 8 on the keyboard. And then divide is just the slash. So these are the basic 4 operations. And then one last operation, which I don't know if some of you will have heard of it, some of you won't have. So let's say we have, what is it? Oh no, this is mod. So this is the %sign in most programming languages is called the modulus operator. And so let's just have it run so you can actually see what this operator does. But I think for those of you who know, you'll probably be expecting this output. So it gave us 1. So you see 10 and 3. I don't know how it really gets to 1. But what exactly the modulus operator does is it'll basically just give us the remainder of the division of these two numbers. So like 10 divided by 3 is equal to 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, with the remainder of 1. So modulus will just give us this remainder. So that's why it just gives us 1. And like if you have like, let's say another example, 15 modulus 4, what will this give? Anybody got any ideas? Oh, let me just check the chat.
3.
3. Yep. Good. Okay. And then there are also another type of operations where you let's say have declare another variable x, and let's say you want to change the value of x in a way by performing some operation on it. So let's say you want to do like now let's say you've already declared a variable and now you want to use it again. You don't have to write like int x again, because what this int x again will do is it'll redeclare another variable with the name x, and then your program will get confused because now there's two variables with the same name. So how can it disassociate between both of them? It can't. So you just now just use its name, and I'd say I'll do plus equals 5, and then I'll do system.out x. So let's see what this will do. So basically what it'll do is it'll just say this plus equals means, so take the current value of x, which is 7, and add on 5 to it. So basically we can edit the value of x by taking into account its previous value and saying we want its future value to be changed by some operation. Either the adding 5, we can also do like, if you wanted to multiply it by 5, we could also do that as well. And then that'll just give us 7 times 5, which is 35. That should print that out. So, and then just like that, there's also like minus equals, which will just say take value of 7 and subtract 5 from it. So 7 minus 5 will be 2. So this is like another like subtype of operations where you can change its value by taking into account its previous value, but you don't have to now redeclare it into another variable. Like let's say we wanted to add 5 to x. What sometimes some people would do is they just do x plus 5. So now you have to create a whole new variable just to do or just to add some value to x. But what you also could do is you could just do x equals x plus 5. This works just as well. So by having like the plus equals, you basically get rid of having to do like the x plus or like the minus equals. Minus equals is the same as doing like x minus 5. So the minus equals is just a more compact way of doing it. So any questions on these operations? Just put them in the chat. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat or anybody raising their hand. So I think we're all good. Can somebody give me some thumbs up or something? All right, some nods. All right, good. So we can continue on. Let's see. So next we'll do some if conditions. Okay. So let's say we want to say now we want to do some conditions. Like if some condition is true, then we want to do print something. So this is where we'll probably start to use some booleans. So let's say we want to know if let's get a variable in a is equal to 100. Let's say if a is greater than 100. We want to now system.out.println a is greater than 100. I know it's a boring statement, but it'll do. So basically now we can use an if condition. And what will happen is, so basically this syntax for an if condition is you just write the words if, and then you put the condition that you want to evaluate inside these parentheses. So you surround it by parentheses, and then the code, so let's say whatever, if this condition is true, then you're going to put the code that you want to execute if the condition is true inside these two brackets. So we've put right now, if the condition is true, just have this print statement. But you can also change the value of variables, create new variables and assign them to something, etc. So basically, whatever code you want to execute, should this condition be true, we always will put inside these brackets. So let's run this and see what we get. So we didn't get anything. Does anybody know why we didn't get anything?
Because
Yeah.
Because A is not greater than.
Yeah. So it's equal to 100, but it's not greater than that. So if we add an equal to sign, now we should get something. Let's see. Now we get A is greater than 100. And now we can also do another kind of condition. So there's 3 different types of these. So there's like if is the first one, but let's say you want to evaluate multiple conditions, and you don't want to have to put if for the same time. If like X amount of times every single time. You want to have like one big statement. What you can do is you can put now another condition, you can put it inside an else if. So let's say you have a variable A is, let's see, greater than 50. And I'll change the value of A to be now, I'll keep it as 100. And now to do system.out.when A is greater than 50. Anybody know what we'll get now?
You will get both of them because you didn't change the if. You'll actually only get the top one because it's a if and else, and you haven't changed the sign at the top one. So it's greater and equals.
Anybody else have any ideas of what will happen? All right, so let's see if Anchika was right. Let's see if Anishka was right. Yeah, we only do get the top one because how exactly this if else if works is that it'll first go to this condition, since this is the first condition that it sees when executing our code, and it'll say, oh, is A greater than or equal to 100? Yes, because A is 100. So it'll print this value, and then what it'll do is it'll just completely not consider or disregard every single other condition. Like let's say we have another condition, A is greater than 20. We want some code to happen here. We have another condition. Right? We have a bunch of other conditions. It will not even check any of them because it's already found. So it's like I already found one. I'm good. I'm not going to skip any of them. I'm not going to check any of the other ones. I'm going to skip them all. Anishka, what is your question?
Can I draw a little diagram?
Say that again.
I think it would be easier for you to explain with a diagram.
A diagram. Okay, sure.
So like true and false. It doesn't matter if the second dot splits because it's already found one.
Yeah, so that's true. This is a good idea. Yeah. So let's say we have this example. So let's say we have this and this. So A is equal to 100. Let's say now we have A greater than equal to 100. If it is true, it'll not check any of the other conditions. But if it's false, now it'll come to our next condition. And our next condition is if A is greater than 50. So we'll check now if A is greater than 50. And we find that 100 is greater than 50. So that is true. So it's like, okay, true. Done. I will exit this. This like set of conditions. So then if it's false though, it'll go on to our next condition if we have one. But if this is false too, then we don't have any condition other after we only have these two conditions. Then it'll just not print anything at all because we have no other conditions that it could possibly check for. So does that diagram make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? Okay. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion, Anishka. That was a pretty good idea. Yeah. Oh, we just see some stuff in the chat. So if you need two if statements, you have to print them both. Yes, that's a good, yeah, that's correct, Sinead. So like you would need to have two separate ifs. Like you'd have to have now because it'll run through this if, see it's true, print this, and then it'll leave this set of conditions. But the if, basically using this if denotes another set of conditions. So now we denote another set of conditions. And it's like, okay, this is true too, I'll print it. Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. For good statements. So let's see some other stuff. Okay. And let's say so you have like we discussed the else if with the A greater than 50. And then system some random stuff here. And then there's also something called an else. And we just let's say this is 20. So anybody have any idea what this will print? Anybody have any ideas?
Definitely the last one.
Yeah, so it'll print out last condition. And we'll just run it. And then I have another question about this. So does anybody notice anything different between the if and the else ifs versus the else? And
The else doesn't have like any conditions.
Yeah, that's true. There's nothing, we don't put anything inside the parentheses like we do for the if and the else. Anybody have any hypotheses why?
Because like else if is more specific. Like if it's not if, then go to the next statement. And if it's also not that, then else, which is like everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the else is basically a last ditch condition in a way. So basically it's like if all the other conditions are not true, then just default to this like in a way backup condition. So since basically this condition will only be executed if every other one is false. So that's why you don't have to put anything here, because if every other one is false, it'll just default to this. So does that one make sense? Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Kadar's threatening me.
What is Kadar doing?
So he knows where I live because his sister is friends with me, and he says, "I know where you live." He's threatening me.
All right, let's just chill out here in the chat. No need to. All right, is everybody good in the chat, or need some mediation? All right, I assume we should be good now. Okay, let's keep going. So we just did the if else. So now let's say you want to have some code run multiple times. Like I want to have a value here, and I want to now, let's say I want to add like 100 to this value, to this variable. 200. I want to do this like 5 times, for example. So what I have to do right now is I have to copy paste this. Okay, copy paste it again, and copy paste it again. So now I copy pasted it 5 times. All right, I see since that's going on in the chat, let's just pause using the chat unless we have actual questions for now. Getting a little bit off topic here, so let's just stay on topic with it if that's good with everybody. Does that sound good? I don't want to stop the chat because like some people have some questions, and I don't want to, if they don't want to have to unmute, if they're not comfortable with that, I don't want them to have to just like sit there. So let's just not use the chat for anything non-Java related or non-question related. Let's just set that as our standard. Yeah, no worries, Alicia, no worries. Okay. Everybody, are you good with that? Yeah, no worries. All right. Let's see. Okay. So let's just get back to this. So let's say we wanted to add like 100 to the value of y. Let's say we wanted to do it like 5 times. Right now I have to copy paste it 5 times. And then now let's see if that actually works. So I'll just print out y. Yeah, Anishka, that's right. We're gonna use, now we're just talking about loops. Yeah. So now it's print out 510. So this did work. But let's say I want to do it 500 times. I'd have to copy paste this over and over again 100 times. That's very inefficient because I have a lot of code that's all just doing the exact same thing. So what we can use now to replace this, no, it's a lot of code. It'll take a while. It won't take the same amount of time. It'll take the same amount of time to use as a loop, but it just becomes very inefficient, especially if you have a lot of things to do in a program and you have to copy paste this 10,000 times because you need it to work. So when you use a for loop, yeah. So I'm quickly just going to go over, just type out the syntax, and then we'll start to actually dissect it and figure out what's going on here. So what I've done now is I'd say in this for loop, just start by typing for. And the conditions you want to discuss, your evaluate here, are in this parentheses again, like we saw in the if statement. And so what we're doing is we're setting an integer. We're calling it I to 0. And we're saying now, as long as I is less than 100, I plus plus. And what I plus plus means is I just adds 1. So we just add 1 to the value of I. So initially, in the first iteration of the loop, I will start off as 0. And then what it'll do is okay, so it's like, okay, 0 is less than 100. So this is true. So if this condition is true, then it'll execute the code inside this for loop condition here, this for loop, which again is we put all the code that we want to execute inside these curly braces. So you're seeing that's like a common theme now in Java, like just like in the if statements as well. So like, okay, I is 0. So like, okay, let's add 100 to the value of y. So 100 plus 10 is 110. And now, after this condition is executed, now it's saying, okay, let's add 1 to I. So now 1 plus 0 is 1. So okay, we check it now again. Is 1 less than 100? Yes. We'll have add 100 again to 1. So 110 plus 100 is 210. So now I plus plus again. So now I is 2. So on and so forth. So now let's say we get to 99. We say, okay, now it's 99. 99 is still less than 100. We'll add 1 again. So now it's 100 again. So now it's 100. And we'll also add the 100 to y. I is now something somewhere like 10,000, 100,000, something like that. 10,000, yeah. So now I is 100. So okay, let's check it out. Is 100 less than 100? No, that's not true. Because 100 is equal to it. It's not less than that. It's not greater than that. It's just equal. So okay, this condition is false now. So once this condition is false, we're just going to leave. We're not going to execute this statement. This statement is inside the curly braces of this for loop. We're just going to leave the vicinity of the for loop in general. And we're just going to move on to the next block of code. So now we've done executing this for loop. And so basically the values that will work for executing the code inside this for loop will go from 0 to 99. So that is 100 values, because like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how we're starting at 0 here, not at 1. If we wanted to go 100 times, we have to start at, and we're starting at 1, we have to start from, we have to go to until 100. But we go until 99 because we start from 0. And then inside here now, we print, we just have the condition or the code where y would just add 100. So let's just see what this gives us when we actually run this program. You have 10,010. There's 100 times 100 is 10,000. Add 10 to that, 10,010. Perfect. Yeah, so now instead of having to copy paste this code 100 times, we can just write it in 3 lines and we're done. So for loops are pretty handy, especially when you're writing a lot of big programs, you have to do stuff repeatedly. Okay. Does this sound good to everybody? Any questions about for loops? Okay. Good. So let's see here. So it's 2:04. Okay, we have a little bit more time until our break at 2:30. So actually, I want to circle back to if conditions really quickly, because there's another kind of operator I want to discuss. Where there's the and or operator. So let's see here. So let's say we have an if condition again, and we'll have a variable in x is equal to 500. And let's say we want to see if x is, let's say now we want to see if x is between. So we say if x is between 100 and 700. Let's say we want to figure this out. So how will we do this right now? We have to evaluate multiple conditions, because we're going to have to see is x first has to be greater than 100, and it also has to be less than 700. So let's first think about this first condition, x being greater than 100. So x has to be greater than 100. So now, okay, so I think we have this condition now. But now, how do we figure out if x is greater than 700 at the same time in the same if condition? What we have to do is we put this operator here called the and operator. So what this basically does is now now we're evaluating multiple conditions at the same time. We're saying, okay, so for this statement, to execute the code inside this if block, both of the conditions inside these parentheses have to be true. X has to be greater than 700, and x also has to be x has to be greater than 100, and x also has to be less than 700. So that is what these two ampersand signs mean. These are what Java calls the and operator. So it's like both of these conditions have to be true for the code inside this particular block to be executed. Does this make sense, the and operator? Okay, cool. So now there's another operator here, which is called the or operator. So the or it's these two pipe symbols. And the pipe symbol is if you do shift, and then there's like this button next to the curly braces, like right under the backspace on the keyboard. We just do shift plus that and get these pipe characters. So two of these are the or operator. And what happens for these or operator, this or operator is now only one of these conditions has to be true. So either x has to be greater than 700 or greater than 100, my bad, or x has to be greater than 700, or x has to be less than 700. So only one of these has to be true, not both of them. So like if we had, say, 1000. So let's just put some code in here. System.out. So what would happen now given this value of x? Anybody have any ideas? Something about always true. So what will it print? Will it print this? Will it not print this? Yes or no? Any ideas?
The condition will always be met because anything underneath 100 will always be underneath 700, and everything over 700 will always be over 100.
Yeah, that's right. So 1,000 is greater than 100, but it's not less than 700. But no worries about that because you're using the or operator. So only one of them has to be true, and only one of them is true. So it's like, okay, it's fine. And if you use both, like let's say both these conditions are true, I go to put a value in the range here, it will still work. Because it's like one or other, but if it's like if both of them are true as well, it's like no worries, I can accommodate for that as well. I'm not set on only one exactly having to be true. And let's say now we're doing the and operator. To make it 5,000. What do you think will happen now, given what we know about the and operator? Will this hello get printed?
It will, because oh, wait, actually it won't, because 5,000 is not in between 100 and 700.
Yeah, so 5,000 is greater than 100, but 5,000 is less, or 5,000 is not less than 700. But since we need both of them to be true and only one is, it won't get printed. And we can see that here because it'll just do nothing. We can add an if condition. Yeah, good annotation finish that. We have an else, system out got printed in something else. Yeah. Ooh. Okie dokie. So, given that, let's do a real quick exercise where, let's say, we have a particular like scenario. So let's give some, I'll give like instructions for like a little scenario. So let's say we have a scenario where we have a person's age. There's some variable. We'll have it some integer variable. Maybe int age is something. And we want, let's say that if the age is greater than, or if the age is less than 18, then the person cannot drive. And we want to print this out. Let's say we're doing a little simulation to see if they can drive or they cannot drive. So like, okay, if age is less than 18, they cannot drive. If age is greater than or equal to 18 and age is less than or equal to 70, then the person can drive. But let's say that the age is greater than 70, they're too old to drive now. So then the person cannot drive. So here are some conditions, and we're given some age variable. So let's see, how can we build a little statement of conditions to figure out, given a particular value of age, are they able to drive or not? We're gonna take a couple minutes to try to
I
figure
know.
this out.
Yeah, it's pretty easy actually.
All right, yeah, we'll just take like 2 minutes. Everybody just try to type out some code on your computer. And if you have any questions or difficulties, just let me know. I'll just keep this up right here. We just delete this other stuff. So these are just the conditions we're trying to follow. Or we're trying to account for in our like, little driving simulator. All right, I think we should probably go to get this, have some code for this in the next minute or two. But just don't want to rush anybody. So if you need any more time, feel free to let me know in the chat or just unmute.
How do you actually do the text thing? I forgot.
The printing.
How do you write text? Because there's more than one step and I forgot.
So like, let's say you want to print some text. It's like you print it in this format. But I don't know. Is that what you're asking, Anishka?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, no worries. So just probably one more minute here to finish up, and then we can discuss. If anybody wants to share some of the code that they wrote, that would be cool as well. All right, cool. So let's see here. I think everybody should have give a little good amount of time for everybody to get some code down for this. So does somebody want to share their screen for what they were able to come up with? Anybody? All right, so now, yep. Yeah, I just stopped sharing, so you should be able to share now.
So the age was 35, so it was within the range of people of the ages of who who can drive. And so it should be able to print. You are able to drive at this age. Yeah, and that's what it does. But then if I put an age like 85, for example, and then I run it, it should print you can't drive. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this code accomplishes our task exactly how we wanted it. So we're saying less than 18, you cannot drive in that range. So that's where we had to use the and operator, because we have to see if it was in the range of 18 and 70, which makes sure it's between 18 and 70. And then if it's greater than that, you cannot drive again. Okay. Yep. Thanks for sharing today. This is great.
No problem.
Okie dokie. So did anybody have any questions about today's solution, or any just comments they wanted to make, or you want to move on? So I think that is a sign that we're good to move on. So let me share my screen again. So the next thing is, so we just discussed before this little segue back into the for and conditions. We just discussed for loops where I'll just quickly write one out. So like, let's say, system out. So this will print hello 100 times. So we just discussed this. So there's another kind of loop now, which is a while loop, where it also does something repeatedly. So for this kind of loop, let's say we have this value, let's say integer a equals 0. So we're going to say while a is less than 100, a should plus equals by 1. And if you say here where we have the I plus plus, like the a plus plus or I plus plus is the exact same thing as saying a plus equals by 1. So they both mean the exact same thing. Plus plus is just a short form, but it only works for when you want to add by 1. If you want to, let's say, add by 2 in this for loop, you'd have to do I plus equals by 2. That's it. So I plus plus is for when you only want to increment by 1, which is what happens in most cases. So let's say we have number 2, we have system out circulated. So we have this. So this here should do the exact same thing that our for loop did. It's just the code is slightly different. But when we decompose it in these to figure out exactly what these lines are doing, it's basically the same thing. So let's just start with this first line right here of int a equals 0. So we just declare an empty variable called a, and we initialize it to a value of 0. And then while the a is less than 100, we say, okay, is a less than 100? This is like the same thing in the if conditions. So is a less than 100? That's true. So it's like one of those Boolean values again. So it's like, if this condition is true, then all the code within these brackets will get executed. So the first code we have here is for a to plus plus, so it'll go from 0 to 1. And then our next code here is for a to, or is first to print out hello. So it's like, okay, I'll add 1 to the value of a, and I'll print out hello. So then the second time around, it'll be like, okay, 1 less than 100, let me add another 1 to 1, so it's 2, and I'll print out hello again, so on and so forth. So for loops and while loops in this usage are the exact same, but there also are some differences. So let's say we can do something here called while true. And then what this will do is, let me just run it. I hope it doesn't break the console. Actually, anybody have any ideas what this will do? Given what I just talked about with the while loops?
While a certain it still applies,
Say that again, Nishka?
repeat. If a certain condition applies, then it will repeat.
Yeah, so I put in true here. So what will be the result when I execute this code?
Nothing, because you didn't put what.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. So nothing. Anybody else agree with that or have another idea?
I think there might be an error
An error. Why do you think there'll be an error?
because it's saying while true, and when you're having like a while loop, normally you'd like make a Boolean variable first, make that Boolean variable equal something, and say while and then the variable. And because you've not made any variable, you just put true, it might release an error.
Okay. Another good hypothesis. Okay. So any other last hypotheses before we run it? All right. So let's see what this gives us. It's not stopping printing the hellos. I don't know why it's doing this. It's just going on and on and on and on forever. So what do we get here? We got an infinite loop. And Anushka, you were pointing to the signal terminated. That was because I accidentally clicked run and I wanted to stop the process. So that wasn't like an error on anything in Java's part. That was just me stopping the code because I wanted to figure out, let you guys think about what would happen before I ran it. So does anybody know why we got an infinite loop or have any ideas why? Yes or no?
Because I guess if like what you're running is true, which is printing hello, it's gonna print hello for as long as it wants until like, because that's what's true, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, like, let's put another condition. Let me just write this. Our previous condition, like int a is like 0, and we had while a less than 100. Oh, a less than 100. So we had this, and we just had this system that print line hello. So these were the two lines, these two different conditions that we were thinking about. So basically, behind the hood, this a less than 100, this is a Boolean condition in itself. So like if I actually print this out, I don't know why I can use this CAD stuff, but if I print this out, this will actually give us a Boolean value. I'll just comment this out for now. So since I don't want that to run, oh, I have to actually keep this. Yep. Okay. So let's see what we get here. Initially, why did you write the no? Yeah, all right, no worries about that. Okay, so we just saw here the a less than 100, and we just saw that was true. So this behind the hood is actually a Boolean condition. So for this value of a, so not necessarily we can think about what Java, the compiler, is thinking behind the scenes is like, okay, since this condition is true, I'll just replace it with a true. So it's like, okay, it's true now. Let me execute this code. So hold up. So basically, this a less than 100 evaluates to a Boolean value. And when we have like 1,000, 100 is not less than 1,000. So this will just go to be false. And so I won't execute the code. So basically, when I put the while true here, what it's saying is that whatever condition is evaluated here, that value will always be true. I don't need any condition or anything. I'm just saying whatever here, this is true. So execute forever. Just execute this code forever. This isn't a very practical use, but this is a use that is possible within Java. So it's like, okay, this command here is true, or this condition here is true. We're just explicitly putting it out there that it's true. So we're like, okay, it's true always. Like while it's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep running this code over and over again. I don't see any issue. Yeah, there's no condition that can be false here because we always done is put true. So this is these are some of the applications of Booleans. And like another way we could do this loop is we could assign this condition to a Boolean beforehand. We could say Boolean condition. So this here, since we printed out the value of a less than 100 and we got true. So we can store that in condition. And now we can say while condition. We can say while condition equals equal. So here we did something here. Oh, so we can do while condition equals true. So these two equals. So whenever you're comparing values in Java, you always have to use two equal signs. You can't just like when you do initialization, we just do one. But here we have to do two equal signs. So we're saying, okay, while this condition is equal to true, let's print this out. And just like that, we can also now say this allows us a little bit more range. We can say, let's say we want this code to only be executed if the condition is false. And let's say, okay, let's have this code execute but only when it's false. We can say equal equals false. And there's a shorthand form of doing this as well. So instead let's say we don't want to have to type out like equal equals true or the equal equals false. We can just do like while condition. So basically this is just saying while condition is basically just a short form of saying while condition equals true. And then the short form for while condition equals false is we just put an exclamation point before condition. So we're like, okay, so if this condition is true, so let's say this value of the variable of this condition is true. So it'd be like while, like the opposite of true, that exclamation point in a way we can think of it as opposite. So like while the opposite of true, that's false. So we're like, okay, while condition is false. Let's execute this. Okay. So I know I threw a lot of information at you actually. But does everybody understand this while loop now and why it was false? Or why it was not false? Why it printed out hello infinitely many times when we had put the true here? Everybody got that now? All right, so good. Yeah. Anishka, I think you put that, yeah. A is not increasing. That's true because we have here, oh wait, we have also, let's see, like A less than 100. Never actually ever changed the value of A explicitly. A always stays at, we made A 0. A always stays at 0. We're not ever adding to it, we're not subtracting, we're not doing anything with the value of A. It stays constant. So our condition, therefore, will always be the same value. So that's why. That's a good point to bring up. Thanks for that, Anishka. So it's 2:30 now. So I know it's our break, and we just stopped at a pretty good point. So we have a 15-minute break. Kedar and Alicia, if you want to stay behind for a couple minutes, so I can talk about like the project, since you both had a little bit of familiarity with Java already. That would be great. Okie dokie. So anybody else, feel free to go on your break. Yeah. Okay. You can turn your cameras off. Yeah, for sure. So I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay. So Kedar and Alicia, let me just pull it up. So what we were thinking a potential project could be is playing roulette. Have both of you heard of the game roulette? You ever heard it? It's like a let me pull up the
I think I've actually already made it in one of your classes.
Are you actually? That's pretty funny. Okay. I'm thinking of a different
Wait,
game.
let me just check. I think
we've used this project in the past before. Yeah.
I probably have made it. I
Yep.
just forgot the name.
found it.
Did you make it?
Wait, what is it called?
Roulette.
Oh, I've made that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You make blackjack. You probably made it in Python, right, Kedar?
I made that in
Blackjack.
Python.
I actually haven't. I don't know how blackjack works.
Yeah. Okay. So project instructions. So we'll make blackjack. I think you should have the basic skills to make blackjack. It's not that complicated.
I know, but like, how does that? What are the rules of blackjack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pulling that up right now. Let me just make sure it's not too complicated. I don't want to give you that's impossible. So how to play blackjack. So basically the aim of blackjack is to get 21. Can you both of you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
The aim of blackjack is to beat the dealer. So that would be like some like machine. So let's see here. So basically you beat them by drawing a value that's larger than them. If the dealer has a value of like they draw multiple cards, and the sum of those cards, like each card has a particular number associated with it. So if the sum of those cards goes over 21, then you beat them. If you have 2 cards, on your first 2 cards, if your values add up to 21, and the dealers don't, then you also do win. And if you lose, if your hand, some of your cards exceeds 21, and by the end of the round, if the dealer has a greater value. So I think you'll need a raise for this, which we haven't discussed yet. But I think we're going to get to it right after this break, a raise. So if you want to stick around for the discussion of a raise, I think you're going to need those when you're creating this project. Okay, so do these basic. Yeah, Alicia.
I don't really understand the how to beat the dealer thing.
Okay, yeah. So let me explain. In blackjack, basically, so basically what happens in blackjack is that the dealer, so basically you and the dealer take turns drawing cards from a shuffled deck. So you draw a card, so you draw 2. So that's your first card you draw. And that has a value, like number value 2. The dealer draws a 5. So they have a 5. Let's say you draw a jack. So basically jacks, queens, and kings all have the value of 10, the number 10 associated with them. So now your hand, the sum of your hand. So these 2 cards, whatever cards you've drawn, those are known as your hand. and that has the value of 12. And let's say the viewer has drawn a 7, but they also have a 12. So basically, now let's say what condition? So hand that's higher than the viewer. So I don't remember exactly how many cards you draw, but let's say you just draw 3 for now. So say you have 3, and let's say you draw another. You draw another jack. So now let's say let's say the round is you draw 3 cards. So the sum of the viewer's cards is 15, but your cards are 20, 22. So yours is 22. So they look greater. But the hand value cannot exceed 21. You have to beat them without going over 21. So since you went over 21, you lose. But let's say you had drawn like a 9. You had 9. That would give you exactly 21. And then now you would win because you hit exactly 21 and you were also greater than the defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me clear.
I think I made something like this in Python, but never Java.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's a little bit more to it as well. I'll send this link in the chat as well.
Okay.
So you can just, when you're referring to it, you can make it. Or you can just look at these rules. So 52 def. Oh, we also have to discuss random numbers. Okay. Yeah, so we have a little bit more stuff to discuss here. Take a little bit more than what we've learned so far to build this. But
I think I might know how to make it, so can I start?
Yeah, you can start, yeah, for sure. So I'm just trying to see how many. Make it such that I sent you these rules. Make it such that the maximum of cards you can draw in a particular round is 3. So I don't remember if that's exact, but we'll just start with this variation. Maximum
3.
of
Okay.
cards you can draw is 3. So basically before, as like the end of the round is when 3 cards have been drawn or somebody's already won. Let's say you hit 21 with 2 cards, then the round is over. But let's say the latest like point you can get to in a round is once both of you have drawn 3 cards. So that's it. Yeah. Okay, does that make sense, Alicia and Kedar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So you can probably just take a little bit of a break, and we'll come back in around 10 minutes, and then we'll study
Okay.
arrays and other stuff.
Yeah. I'll work on it. I'll probably finish it by the end of class.
Hey, you're doing. We're gonna try to aim for this tomorrow. This is a pretty good group, but yeah, if you want to get started on it now, don't like stress yourself out over it. It shouldn't take that long too, but you're already ahead, so don't worry about getting it done super quick. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. So I know I ate into your break time a little bit, but let's see, 10 minutes, we'll start up again.
Oh, wait. Tanish?
Yeah, what happened, Alicia?
I've made this. I put it under the name 21.
All right. Did you make it in Python?
Yeah, I made it in both.
Blackjack. Okay, do you want to actually make solitaire? Or what another project, I think the other class that Ria taught, they made a chat bot. Let's think. Okay, so do you want to either make like a chat bot where the program will ask you certain questions and based off your responses, certain things happen, or you want to make like something like solitaire?
I can make like a chat box. Let me see.
All right, do you want to build solitaire, Alicia?
Sure.
Okay. So I think Kader might be on the break, so we can still go to blackjack. Actually, I don't know how to play solitaire, so we'll quickly learn it.
Oh wait, can I try making like I've like tried some of these before and I like them. Can I make like a quiz, like a personality kind of quiz?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. that's
Okay.
on the, like chatbot. Yeah, for sure. I think, because I think a number of you might have been blackjack. We could either do blackjack or the chatbot tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. You can go to quiz personality thing. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, we're Kara and Alicia just were sticking around because they had already done some Java before, so I'm just detailing the project that we would do tomorrow. But no worries. It was just we're gonna make a blackjack. Yeah, but I think we're still on break, so you didn't miss anything. Yeah, no worries. We'll probably start about in like 5-6 more minutes.
Break time's over.
Yep, okay, so I just gave everybody like a minute or so more to trickle back in, and then we'll resume. We'll start with a new data structure this time. We've been discussing a lot of variables now, but we'll get to a data structure that's like variables on steroids now, which will be pretty cool. So just give everybody a minute or so, unless see if everybody just wants to, once they join, just like send a message into chat or like react with some way, just like a know you're here, that would be great. Don't want to start without anybody, of course. See? I think I'm waiting on this 1 or 2 people. Yeah. Okay, Mickey. Okay, cool. I think now we should have everybody. So we're gonna get to a new data structure now. And we're gonna call it, and it's called arrays. So basically what arrays are basically they just hold multiple values of data basically they just hold multiple variables. So let's say we have like an array. So, and now you'll see a new syntax here with these brackets. So let's say call it actually, I'm just gonna quickly just declare it first, new and array. So basically here, this is the line to initialize an array. So let's just dissect this real quick. So we have first we have the integers. So arrays can only hold values of the same data type. So let's say I wanted to put a string in here as well. Like I can't do that because I'm declaring this as an array that stores integers. I can't put strings, I can't put boolean, even doubles, even though they're numbers that just like integers. I can't put them. I can only put the same data type. And now this bracket differentiates the integer from the integer array. So basically, you can just think about this as an integer array called x. And now look at the equal sign, the name x, of course. Then this new int. So this new int, this is a little bit out of the scope of today's lesson. I think maybe we'll be able to get to it tomorrow. But this arrays are a type of are basically what we call an object in Java. And an object is basically just a place in memory. Is basically for more advanced data structures, they're created like this called an object. So I think if you want, I can send some links out of classes if you want to explore this. But I think we might be able to discuss it tomorrow. So we'll just quickly gloss over it for now. And then once we have here this int again, this new int, and the same thing, just in brackets, it's already discussed. And this is a way, basically where we can hard code the values of the array. So here we just put, this is, and when we have these curly braces and we put all the values around the curly braces, this is known as an initializer. So basically what happens is we initialize the values of the array right when we declare it. We already put the values of the array in there. We're saying we want to hold 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4. And with arrays, the values they hold can change, but the amount of values they hold and the type of values they hold cannot change. So arrays are a fixed length. So I can't say I want to add let's say now here later on I want to add a 5th value to this array x. I can't do that because they're a fixed length. Once I declare it, the length has to stay the same. But the values of that can change as long as they all stay consistent with the data type. So does that make sense? I saw some stuff in the chat. Let me get to that. Okay. Any questions about this? Well, I think this is what I'm seeing so far. Everybody's good so far, which is great. So we'll just continue. So we have this array. So now let's say there's some other ways to declare an array. So here, what I'll do is this. Anybody have any ideas what this means? Where I just have the second line here, where I just put the 4 in the brackets. Any clues, any guesses?
It's the length of the array.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So Basically, let's say you don't want to have to hard code the values of the array when you're initializing. Let's say you might not even know what values your array should have. So let's say for this array X, we knew, but for this array Y, we didn't know. We don't know. So we're like, okay, let's just you have to know the length still. All right, okay, fine. We'll just use this here. We'll just declare it with an empty list or empty array. And these are different from lists. For those of you who have familiarity in Python, this is different than lists. For lists, you can change, you can remove values, you can change the length, etc. Lists in Python can also have values that have different data types. So their Java is a little bit more constrained. So when I print Y, what will happen actually is something interesting. We get this random string here, which connects back to what I said about objects, and how objects basically just hold the value to like a specific point in memory. So this is the memory address, and that you fetch and at this memory address, the values of our array are located. So just like in a variable, when we printed out X, the X is in an object. So when we print out X, Java's holding that value X right when we try to print it. But for Y in these arrays here, it's holding a memory address. It's not holding the actual value. So that's why we get this. So to actually, but we want to see the values of our array. So we have to import something and import a library. So just type this out for now because it's a little out of the scope to go and actually figure out what this Java.util is doing. But I think it's okay. I think this should be it. Let's just see what we get. Yeah. So I can copy this import statement in the chat, but this is basically just here so we can import. Basically, this library allows us to pass this method here. This arrays.toString. We pass in this Y, and we're in the arrays.toString. Basically, what happens is we're passing in this memory address, and this toString here is called this, and this is a function. We make a call to this toString function in the arrays file. So that's a little bit of a breakdown. So we're saying, okay, in this arrays file, what you've imported, let's now call this function, which we'll get to right after this. Let's call this function toString, and we'll pass in this memory address. And from here, the toString method will go query that specific memory address, give us the values, and print that out. So, does this make sense to everybody? How to view the contents of the array? I know this might be a little bit complicated, but I think y'all can handle it. Any questions? Seeing thumbs up, which is great. So I think, yeah, so no questions I'm seeing right now, but if you have any, feel free to speak up at any time for sure. So these are how to view the contents of an array. And if you look at these contents, we'll see they all start at 0. So by default, Java just starts every single integer array, which is declared with just the length and not specific values. So let's just start with the default value as 0. Let's change it to a string array. Let's see what we get. I don't actually remember what we should default. I think the default value is an empty string. So, it's null. Yeah, okay. So basically, we just get null. For doubles, we'll get something. We'll get 0.00, so on and so forth. So these are just arrays. So arrays basically they're just objects in memory that have fixed location or fixed length. They basically hold values of multiple variables. So basically, instead of having, let's think we wanted to hold 4 values. We would normally, if we didn't have arrays, we would do int A is 1, int B is 2, int C is 3, and so on and so forth. But if we have 10,000 values, we can't be copy pasting that line 10,000 times and printing 10,000 different variables. That just doesn't make any sense. So we can use an array here. And now, let's say we wanted to now loop through this array. So this is another concept. I'm going to use for loops here. So first, let's create for in Let's say we do something different than what we've talked about so far. I do this x dot length thing. So in our previous for loops, I just did like x is less, or I is less than a number. But here I'm doing this length, and what this basically is, the length is just getting how many values are in this array. So here we have 4 values, and we also have 4 and 1. That's what we initialized it with. So let's say for just like good programming practices, you don't want to have to like hard code the value of this array, or like the length of this array. So you can just use the x dot length or like array name dot length syntax. That will work. And now let's just do this. We'll do x of I. So let's just quickly run this and see what we get. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and we see this little weird thing here, this x brackets I, which is something we haven't seen before. And what this basically does is, well, let's just quickly break this down. So we see for the first iteration of this for loop, I starts at 0. So in a way, what we're printing out is x brackets 0, but we still don't know what that is. So I'm just going to open the paint again. I think diagram will be helpful for this one. So let's say we create like a little box, and I'll split this off into 4 compartments. So basically here we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. So what happens is we're saying, I think that's our variable, our array x. We're saying x brackets 0. So what this is telling us is we want to get the 0th value of this array. And what that means is that, so we have in Java, these are just like that variable like 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever we pass into these brackets. This is known as like the indices or an index. So we're saying we want to get the 0th index of this array. And in Java, the arrays are 0 index. So like the first value has an index 0. So this is start like 1, 2, 3, 4 because 0, 1, 2, 3. So that might take a little getting used to. So the second value here is at index 1, third value index 2, fourth at index 3. You can annotate too. Yeah, I just prefer the paint. This is not where I draw stuff, but yeah, I can definitely annotate as well. Thanks for that. So here x bracket 0 just gets this will print out this value 1 because this is the value that's stored at the 0th index. Similarly, what would just put in the chat? What would x brackets 2 do? Anybody got any ideas what x brackets 2 would do?
It would print out, or it would like do like 3, I guess.
Yeah.
3. Yeah.
3. What about x brackets 5? That'd be a little trickier. Anish, I see you holding up 6. Why 6?
It starts counting from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, that's interesting. Anybody else got any other ideas? Okay, let's test it out. So I just print out, I'll get rid of this loop, and I just print out. So since like at a particular index, a variable is stored. We don't have to do like this arrays.toString thing that we did with the whole array. We can just print out specifically x brackets 5. We can just access the value like this, and it will print out a variable like we normally do. We got this error. What is it saying? Index out of bounds exception. Huh, what exactly is that? Anybody have any ideas why we got this error? Anybody got any ideas? Or, okay, I see somebody initially pointing, yeah. So if we open up our diagram, yeah, length is 4. So let's just go back to the drawing board here. I'll erase this. So the length is 4. So let's say now let's just go back, let's just go to the drawing board now. So our array was only defined up to this point. So we didn't have access to an array with indices 4 and 5, or indices just 5 for that matter. So if we don't have an array with index up to 5, how can we access it if it doesn't even exist? That doesn't make any sense. That's not possible. The compiler is confused. So that's why it gives us this little exception, because it's saying your index is out of bounds. You can only have up to index 3, since your array is declared to have length 4, because like 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can't be having this index 5. It is out of pocket. I don't understand. So does that make sense? Why we got this error? Okay, anybody got any questions? This is a little bit some of the more challenging stuff. So it's fine if you have any questions. I expect there to be some questions. Not seeing any questions right now. Okay, that's fine. So let's see here. Let me add some values to our array. So now, what do you think will happen now? Will it work? Will we get another exception? Any ideas? Anybody got any ideas to what will happen when we run this code? All right. I'll just run it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we should get 6. Yeah, we do. Because now we added more values onto our array. So now we added, let's see, we have added, so it has length 6 now. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could add, or we could now get the 5th index out of this array. Yeah, great. Okie dokie. So let's see here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We got all these ones. So this is the basics of arrays. I'm thinking we need anything else. Oh, we didn't discuss assigning values to arrays. So let's say we want to do change some values in the array. Okay, we need to do the time equal. So we're going to multiply the value of the x at the 0th index by 2. We can now we can just do the arrays dot to string x. Let's see what we get now. So originally our x started off as 1, but we multiplied it by 2. So now 1 times 2 is 2. So that's how the value got updated here. So you can just basically to change the value of an array, you can just access it using this brackets, then the index notation, then just write whatever operation you want to happen to this particular variable or this particular value that's at the index of an array. Okay, this makes sense to everybody? Cool. Okay, so now let's get into the next thing, which is functions. So some of you may have heard of functions before in other languages, but if you notice so far, what we've been doing right now is everything has been in this, let me just get rid of all this code. Everything has been in this like little line, these brackets here with like this public static void main string array args. So we've been writing everything so far in this like code, or this like particular set of brackets. But let's say we don't want to write something out of here. So I doubt all of you know what this means. So basically what this means is whenever we run this file here called main.java, whenever we run it, whatever is code is put inside this public static void main, that's what the compiler will run. So like, let's say we have some code out here and a function, which we'll get to. So we have some code out here, right? If we don't call the function or access the function in this main code, whatever code we run is written here. It could be great code, but we don't access it, it will never run. It will never do is see that output. This main acts like as a way for the compiler to just go in and execute everything, every operation listed in this main function. Right here. This is also a function in a way. So let's just do void. So this static is a little bit, I think we could be able to get the static tomorrow. But for now, just type out static. And then here's a static void. And you just do public static void. Okay, so basically, these are the 3 keywords that you need when we're declaring our function for most of these functions that we're going to be writing in this class. And let's just call it add numbers. This would be a pretty basic function, but let's still demonstrate these. So we have this value here. So basically, we have inside these parentheses, we're putting in the parameter of our function. We're saying, okay, the function should take in 2 parameters, x and y, and they'll both be integers. And so our function, the premise of our function here is to add 2 numbers. So we can just return. So basically return, actually, so return, what return will do is it'll give us basically the output of our function. So once the function call hits this return, then after it executes the return, it'll just leave the function. Because now it's like, okay, I've executed my output, then I hit this return statement. I'm good to go, I'm done. So that's basically what will happen. We'll basically just return, and we're just going to return the sum of these 2 values, x and y. So now let's actually call this function. Let's just do, we'll have a number for x and 5 and 10. So, and we also put this int here because the int here basically specifies what we're returning. So here we're returning an integer, but let's say we had 2 doubles here. We put double, and there's also a case where we might not return anything at all. So that's where we would put the void word that I saw earlier. So void basically means we're not going to return anything at all. So having this return statement with a void doesn't make any sense because void methods cannot return a value. So let's switch it back to integer, and now it's about absolutely fine. Oh, we didn't get anything. Anybody know why that is? We didn't get anything. It's a little tricky, but anybody have any ideas? We didn't get anything, even though we did call our function too. Yeah, Anishka, I see you like raising your hand.
Because you didn't tell it to do anything. You don't know what if it did anything because there is no reaction. You didn't tell it to say anything.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. So we just told it to just do this, add these 2 numbers. Also, since we're returning an integer, we have to save the output of our function somewhere. So since we're returning an integer, it's only right that we save it in an integer as well. Let's call it sum. Now, basically, now this value of adding these 2 numbers is stored into this integer sum. And now we could just print it out like we normally do. Sum. But let's say if you do want to store it in a variable, a little shorter form of this is you can just do this, where you can just you can just directly print it. You don't have to store it in a variable. So now if we run this, let's see what we get. We get 15. 5 plus 10 is 15. Yeah, exactly. So either you can store it in a function or in a variable and then print out that variable, or you can just directly go to printing it out. So basically the purpose of functions is just that a lot of times, if you're just writing code solely in this main function here, this is also a function which takes in the parameter string array, which the compiler will actually pass in, not us. So if you just write anything in this function main, it can get very clogged up and very large, and it becomes hard to read. So splitting your code up into functions makes it more readable. So does that make sense? Any questions about these functions? Any questions? Not seeing anything. Okay, so I think we'll continue on there. We're going at a pretty quick pace, which is cool. So let's just now we can make our functions a little bit more complicated. So let's say we have here if x is less than 5. We'll just change our function name back to be operation. Let's say we're defining like a custom operation, so custom mathematical operation. Let's say this operation hinges upon the fact that let's say x has to be less than 100. And now say x is less than 100, but we want to return, instead of returning x plus y, we want to return x times y times 10. We want to return x times 2, basically x times y, we want to multiply that again by 2. But now, let's say else, let's say if x is not less than 100, we just want to return x plus y like what we normally do. And based off of these values of x and y, what do you think that is what do you call it? The output of this operation will be? Any ideas for what this operation will be? All right, so basically what will happen is we'll say let's check out what value we're passing. We're passing in a value of x of 5 and y of 10. So we're saying let's look at our conditions now. Is x less than 100? 5 is less than 100. That looks good to me. So it's going to the output of this function now will be x times y times 2. 5 times 10 times 2, which is 100. So now what does this return? It's not going to look at any of this else condition or anything like that. It hits its return. It's going to leave this function. And now we're going to go directly back into this main function right here. So now let's run this output, this code, and see what we get. We get 100. And now, based off of this, what do you think will happen if we put in 100 for this value of x? Any clues? Any ideas? Any guesses? It doesn't have to. You don't have to worry if you're right or wrong. If you're wrong, it's completely fine. There's no worries at all. All right, I'll just run it. Let's see what we get. We get 110. Let's see exactly what we did. Okay, we did 100. Okay, yes, because x is not less than 100. 100 is equal to 100. So we go this x plus y. Yep. Cool. Yeah, I'm like, you don't have to ask me to get a drink water. Yeah, you can go for sure. Yeah, don't worry about it. Go to the bathroom, you're good. Okay. So let's see here. So we just this the functions. So basically we can wrap a lot of if conditions, our for loops, our while loops, and depending on if we certain conditions that we want to meet, we can have these return values for functions. So any questions at all for functions? Okay, no questions. Okay, so I think because we covered a lot of material, a lot more than I thought we would have covered today, which is great. So let's see here. This website. So now I have this way. I use this website of problems here, and it's called Coding Bat. And what basically it has here is basically let's just look at it. So it'll basically give us a problem statement, and we have to try to have some code that actually performs this problem. It has a bunch of like different test cases which test the rigor of our solution. So let's try to do some of these problems right now. So I'll put some of these problems in a link to this problem in this chat, and I'll give everybody like 5-6 minutes to do it. And so all the knowledge we've covered so far should be enough to solve these problems. So if everybody just wants to take a quick stab at the problem, that would be cool. And I think that we can go over them and discuss.
What does it mean if it says something is in the range? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's a 13.9.
Okay, all right, no worries. Yeah. He just think if it's between 5 and 19, or 13 and 19. I don't know why I said 5. I think 2-3 more minutes for solving the problem. So you have sent me in solutions, which is nice. All right, one more minute for this one. Yeah, then we can see. Okay, so everybody was able to get some code down for this problem? See, does anybody want to share their solution? Or any code that they had? It doesn't have to be complete either. Yeah. Even if you guys had some questions about it and we're not even able to write any code, that's still fine. Yeah. Anybody want to share? Okay. So I can quickly pull up my screen. Let's see here. Let's look at this problem. So saying the number is teen. If it is, let's see, in the range of 13 to 19 inclusive. So if one or more of them is teen, then we have to see if what you call it, they have to return true. So basically, let's first check to make sure if A is teen. So if A is teen, it has to be greater than 13 and be less than 19. Let's see now here. So in this case, oh, why do I? So now it has to be true. Now it's true. So if this condition, if these two are true, then A is what you call it. Then A is teen. And now we can also add another condition here. We're using this or. We can say if B is greater than or equal to 13 and B is less than or equal to 19, then now B is teen as well. And likewise, we can do the same thing for C. So now we check to make sure if C is teen. So return true or the return false. So basically what happens here is we're saying, so say if A is teen, then it'll meet these two conditions. But let's say even if multiple of them are teen, since we're using the and the or expressions right here and here, we're saying hey, if one or more of them is teen, then it's going to return true. That's exactly what we want. So one or more so if one or more of them is teen, then we'll return true. But let's say if we use and, so just one to make sure it works. Okay, so it works. Let's say we use and. What would be wrong about this code if we use and? Anybody have any ideas why this code would be wrong if we use and? So it would be wrong because now we're saying we'll only return true if A, B, and C are all teen. But that's not what the question is wanting. It wants. It only wants if one or more of them is teen. We're only returning true if all three of them are teen. So that doesn't work. So we're only going to get some cases right. Because 3 is still one or more. But one or more, the 3 does not encompass all the possible solutions of one or more. So does this make sense? This code that I wrote and what we just discussed? Any questions on this? No questions? Okay. Oh, we got a little quiet after the break, but no worries about that. Okay. So let's try one more. So let's do, yeah, I have 3 that we could do. So we'll probably be able to get through all 3 of those. Okay, yeah, this one should be a pretty quick one. All right, let me just send the link in the chat.
Are the values random or can they be fixed?
So basically, I don't think you have to worry about that because it'll just give you basically the tester, like the code will just input 2 random values for A and B. And then based on those, your code should give the right output.
Okay.
I've realized one thing about making quizzes, it gets very complicated if you don't use comments.
It can get complicated. Yeah, the comments are good for documenting your code. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to do the quiz, and because if you answer a question, you get another question. Based on that question, you get another question. And it's so many if loops. It's like, where does each question start?
So yeah, so if you document it, you can say, oh, question 1, question 2, etc. That'd be good.
I'm almost done half the quiz,
Nice.
but tomorrow I can finish the second half.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I forgot what the text command is.
Or text command.
Yeah, I forgot how to The text box.
I don't think you mean like the printing?
No, like how do I return the answer? Do I like print it? Wait, I just return.
So 1 to 2 more minutes for this one, and then we can see if anybody wants to share.
I need help with my project.
What happened?
I need help with my project.
All right. I think after this problem, class will probably be over. We'll end a little bit early, so I can help you after that. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah. Because it's like weird for my personality quiz. Everything seems correct. There are absolutely no errors. For the first question, if you put in the answer, nothing shows up.
Okay. So everybody, do we want to discuss the solution for this question? Everybody, I think we got a good amount of time to do it, right? Anybody have any interest in sharing what they were able to come up with?
I did.
All right, you wanna-
I did. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically they're saying if the two values are the same. So let's say if the two values are the same, I can quickly share out my code. So basically we just have to figure out first if A and B are the same. And let's say because there's two values to return their sum. So if they're not the same, then we only want to return. We're just going to return their sum. So basically here, the way we figured if it's not equal is just remember how we saw like the not before a Boolean earlier today? You can apply the same concept and basically say not equal. So if A is not equal to B, we're just going to return the sum. Otherwise, you can just return 2 times A plus B. And we actually don't, shaders, but I think had an else after this. We don't need the else technically because if this return statement is not executed by default, it'll just leave the if condition and we can get right here to this return. So this should be good here. Okay. Any questions on this problem? Okay. So I think this is good. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground. Yeah. Even dipped into some of the curriculum for tomorrow, which is cool. So I think from that standpoint, we're all good to go here. So I think we'll end a little bit early, given that we were able to get everything pretty nicely. So with that said, Alicia, if you want to stay behind, just like look at your quiz code, that would be cool. But everybody else, you're free to go, or you can just stick around if you have any questions. But thanks for a great first day, and I'll see you. Our first day at Java, technically 4th day of the class, but I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Vinay. Good job today.
See you tomorrow.
See you. Bye, Nishka. Bye, Kedar.
I had a question real quick.
Yeah, I want to see Alicia's personality thing.
Okay. It's like really weird and kind of cringy and it's not working, but so I've got this code and this is what happens. I had to fix the /end, okay? So it's like A or B. And so far I haven't done anything for the A side, okay? So nothing would work if I put in A. But B would work. So I'm like, okay, let me put B, uppercase B. And then nothing shows up. There's not even an error or anything.
Okay. Let's see here.
Why are there no brackets after that if statement?
Where?
And couldn't you have just done a character?
You could have, yeah. You could have done like you could have done like character answer for question 1 is equal to input dot next character or next char. I think
you have to do dot next dot car at 0. It's more complicated, the scanner part.
Exactly. That's why I just want to do this.
I think string should still work just as well because you can put one character in a string. So
yeah,
you use the dot equals. Okay. So yeah, put the brackets. Let's start by putting the brackets around our ifs. So you see like
all the if statements?
Yeah, each if statement. This is not like Python. I think you need brackets for every single if in Java.
Wait, you forgot to put the brackets?
Yeah, I don't.
That'll take me 2 hours. Because do you see how many if statements are in this thing?
Yeah, but that's how Java. That's the syntax of Java. You need the brackets.
This isn't Python.
It's a small if though. It's nothing super serious.
Okay. Okay. I'll fix it later because I need to get off the screen. My eyes hurt.
So then, I think your issue should be good then once you have the brackets. I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then I had another question. For the board game thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
How long is it estimated to be?
we had it scheduled, the whole event is 9 to 12, but you don't have to stay for the entire thing. 'Cause I know that's a lot.
Okay,
You
and
can come
then
for as long as you, or as little as you want. Yeah, it's up to you.
yeah, I already told Ria, but like I'm probably gonna come, but I might be a little bit late for the beginning because I have a New York Academy class from 8 to 9.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
All right. Yep, sounds good.
I shall see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. Say hi to Krisha for
Bye.
me.
Okay, bye.